Welcome. This is the first sort of podcast we're doing. Anton, one of our regular listener, he's been around for a while. We've had some wild conversations together a little over a year ago. Um, Frankly, I was super, I was humbled and kind of honored that you were open enough to share that stuff with me. Um, you know, Especially because I've had my own stuff that I'm very nervous to talk about.
Mhm.
And I think I did, and that's kind of what you mentioned. So I guess, yeah, welcome, Anton.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure being here. Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the honor of being the first
Oh,
to
it's,
be on the podcast, and hope for many more that we're going to be having
oh yes,
in this series.
yes, I appreciate that. Um, so yeah, I guess let's start out. How did you hear about frequency tuning?
Jeez, frequency tuning. Okay, now we're going way back when.
I
So
love
the
that.
whole frequency tuning, I got very much interested. It kind of goes back to when I was like 14. I'm in my mid 20s now. There was this YouTube channel that was about like spirits of science and stuff like that. And I got interested in OB, like out of body experiences, near death experiences. I was very a skeptical kind of person. And then I obviously I think like every guy in their 20s, when they get ADHD, they need to think about like different strategies, unmedicated strategies to figure out how to achieve focus. And I remember I was like, my biggest thing is achieving sleep, like trying to like find ways to fall asleep. And when it came to that, I found your channel. I was like, it was just this. When I found frequency tuning, it was like this whole library of sounds and all these crazy things. And it actually gave me like flashbacks of the time when I was like researching into just like binaural beats and spirituality. And, I started like going through everything. And then it was almost like one chapter. So then fast forward a little bit. I broke my leg. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. It was a tibia fibula spiral fracture. So it's the kind of fracture you'd get riding motorcycles right there. There's a motorcycle helmet.
That's
But
cool.
what happened was skateboarding accident, broke my leg, had to get surgery, got surgery the next day, came back home. Great. And then I was in a cast for about 8 weeks in my bed, and I had to have my leg raised so above my head so there's no swelling. So I'm there for 8 weeks. What am I gonna do with my life? So then I got into meditation. I started this was when the resurgence of Robert Monroe sort of came back up again, and I really got into meditation.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, trying to figure out. I read a book, Journey Out of Body by Robert Monroe, and at the back of the book, it actually shows you how to have an OBE. You first start with OBE, and there's three phases specifically. The Oh, dang, there's three phases. I got to the second phase, which is the vibration phase, and I freaked out.
Is that
Absolutely.
your
Which
whole? Would your whole body vibrate?
entire body
Yep.
vibrated violently,
Yep.
like the most violent, but it was no, it felt good. And I remember it freaked me out after like 10 seconds of being in there, got out, I like stood up. I was like, whoa. But I remember whenever I would, in that moment, whenever I would blink, I didn't. s- I did like when you blink, you can sort of see the shutter of your eyelid. You can temporarily see darkness. When I blinked, it was like I couldn't. It was like I wasn't blinking, and I closed my eyes, and then it was like I was still able to see my room. So I'm like, what the hell? So I was like, okay, this is something to do with meditation, spirituality, frequencies. And then I remembered your YouTube channel, frequency tuning. So now we're going back full circle. So then I was like deep diving in to like meditation head first. So about for 8 weeks, I listened to your channel and experimenting with different frequencies, and I started to like really develop a really good ear for like the like frequencies I would hear, like, oh, that's like 4 hertz, that's like 10 hertz, that's 30 hertz. And because of your resources that you actually have on your YouTube channel, I was able to like really deep dive, and I wanted to contact you. I was like, dude, I need to get this guy going. So I was super hesitant at first, and yeah, that's how it started the journey. The listening, because I broke my leg, got into OBEs, had an experience, found your YouTube channel, and I was a follower ever since.
That's super cool, and it's crazy because that's how you sort of turn lemonade out of lemons. Like you're sitting there and you were searching for something to do, and you were sitting there, but you would learn how to travel.
Crazy. I haven't gotten
Yeah.
out just yet. I think there's like this really interesting, like I've been doing a lot of research when it came to like what out of body experiences are with relation to like extrasensory perception.
Oh yes.
And there are like multiple stages, but like multiple experiences, and not every experience is the same.
No.
So like, I would listen to podcasts and I would hear other people's experiences when it came to the outer body experience itself. There's a lot of similarities, but there are some like nuances and some differences when it came to it. And I remember when I reached out to you, when it first happened, well, the first time I reached out to you, it was like I was super nervous. I was like, oh
Yes.
my God, he's gonna think I'm crazy.
No.
He's gonna think this. I,
Absolutely
I,
not.
I didn't know what to even say. I was so like, it felt like a secret I couldn't even tell anyone about.
Yep.
And then I remember you were, sorry, there was a moth. Ugh. But yeah, it felt like a secret. I remember like when I first talked to you, it was like this sigh of relief. I was like, he understands and he gets me, and his stories are even wilder. I'm
Yeah.
like, ah, yes, brother. That's exactly what I was looking for. But yeah,
Yeah.
and here we are.
Well, it's community, it's I went through the same. That's why you calling me and telling me this, it helped me too, because I know exactly what you're talking about. The body vibrates. I mean, there's been times when I've been shaking so violently that I have to go sit in the bathtub. And then I close my eyes and I'm just, dude, I'm gone. Like I'm not gone, but it's wild. It is absolutely wild.
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hanging in there.
Yep.
But I'm sure we're definitely going to be deep diving in a lot of those topics. I'm sure we have a couple of things that we definitely be going through
Oh
and
yes.
sharing some of our experiences. So yeah, I'm super excited to, take things to the next level.
Yeah, it's fascinating even thinking about that, trying to put logic behind what we're experiencing. With consciousness, like are we, because my interpretation of it is that especially with astral projection, like I've experienced different types of OBEs.
Hmm.
Astral projection, you can't really interact with anything in the physical world, but I think there's other dimensions that you can go into in terms of OBEs where you can actually more or less sort of interact. Uh, I mean, I think I put out a video a couple days ago, saying our world is a hologram.
Yeah,
Um, I do believe that. I don't think it's a hologram in like a gamified traditional sense, but um, it's like the collapse of space and time, going back and forth. A lot of the stuff Robert Monroe talked about.
absolutely. And I do think the way Robert Monroe described it, but also Dango thoughts as well. Robert Monroe sort of described it as like an overlay. In his book, Journeys Out of Body, he described it specifically as an overlay, which was like a world on top of a world. It's almost like, they're almost like interlinked in a sense. And it was very interesting to hear that sort of perspective. It's like, the astral, like there is like multiple definitions. There, some people call it the ether, some people call it higher dimension, whatever the case may be. But I think like it is overlaid on top of what we have now.
Yeah,
And I think I've never been there, but I think from your experiences, like, you are you're in that other space,
yeah,
but you cannot interact with the physical aspect of it, but you're definitely in another area that's
yes,
that's just it's just like you have to go through a specific meditation, a specific process to get there. And when you were talking about specifically like the hologram, but like the not simulation there, it could be, but it's like Dango thought. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He did
mhm,
the red laser experiment where you would take DMT, you would consume it, you would meditate, and then you would put a laser on the wall. Then you would see the code. Exactly that.
Yeah.
He also described it as such, where it's almost like it's almost like how we are experiencing reality itself. We're experiencing it in our own world. And when we're interacting with another person, they're not necessarily like an NPC, like a non-playable character, but they're almost like an avatar that you may be able to interact with, but you're not actually interacting with the person itself. You're dealing with like a representation of who they are, and we're all connected into this like main, like you could say like a simulation, I guess. But you do that on a larger scale. It plays like a simulation. It's like it's like a one player game. You're the only player, but you can sort of interact with other people, but you can't break into their bubble.
Yes, that's what I've discovered. I've seen bubbles. I've seen bubbles. Yeah, like
Ooh.
light. It's like light bubbles that you know flying around that, which is very it's safety.
Mm,
It makes me feel better. And the only time I've seen another person one time in the astral realm, and it was it spooked me at first because I had never seen anybody in it. Uh, but I went up to him, and he was nice. We literally just flew around together for a while. Um,
there.
yeah, that was that was wild. It because I remember getting spooked at first because I was like, oh shit, people can see me doing this.
Yeah,
Uh,
big time.
yeah, so it's like a degree of wondering, like, okay, how careful do I need to be, you know?
That's the thing though. But like now that out of body experiences are becoming so mainstream, like, well, when I say mainstream,
Yeah.
like more common for people because like we are more than a physical body. We are more than our physical self.
Yep.
We are not only physical beings, but we're also spiritual beings. Like I think that space that you went through, it's going to be more populated over time. So it's going to be a lot more common for other people to be able to see each other. And I think it'd be very cool if you were able to like communicate with a person, somehow take down like a phone number or a detail or an
Yes.
email, and then get their phone number and then communicate. That would
Oh
be
yeah.
insane.
Oh yeah. In fact, I guess stuff similar to that. Um, nothing to that intricate detail, but getting a phone number. I've heard stories of people doing that. Yeah. But yeah, that'd be absolutely wild. Uh, it's interesting though, thinking about the space being populated. It's kind of like, it's like the real metaverse. Um,
Yeah. But you can't put a subscription on it. It's kind of
yeah,
free for everyone to use.
you gotta. I frankly, I wish I had a better answer for how people access it. Other than I think it's for me, it's a very holistic thing. Like it's more than frequencies. Like I need to be taking care of my body. I need to be taking care of my mind. I need to be taking care of my spirit. And once all three are working together, then it's a lot easier to access. And meditation is a part of it. But like at least for me, there's times it's just it comes and goes when I'm able to access it. Um, Sometimes I can literally just close my eyes and I pop out.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and there's, look at it. One of the things I've found is looking at shorelines on maps. That's it's because it's not like there's some like extra sensory perception of like, oh, I'm just gonna pop up over at this spot. Like
Mhm.
I actually need to see the map, otherwise I'm not gonna know where the hell I'm going.
Like the movie Jumper. Have you ever seen the movie Jumper before?
No.
You know the guy, the guy who plays Anakin Skywalker. That guy. There's a movie called Jumper where basically he has a gift
Yeah.
and he's able to jump from location to location, looking at pictures. And so he thinks of it and he pops there, and it's a whole entire story. But you said something interesting there, where you have to make sure your mind, body, and soul are all like they're all taken care of.
Yep.
And I guess it kind of makes sense if one is out of sync, well, then the other two are out of sync. So it's almost like that perfect triad in a sense.
Yes.
Like, how do you take care of your mind, your body, and your soul? Like, is it like a specific protocol? Is it like a specific diet? Or like is a specific ritual for all three? Or like what's the sort of process looking like there?
So I can answer it from my experience. And I think everybody's experience will be a little different. And my experience is by no means in my mind, it's by no means the only way. But like for me, obviously body's easy. Exercise, eat healthy. Uh, Spirit, I think and this is just this is just opinion. I think there's different archetypes that we can follow. Whether that, whatever archetype that is, I don't want to bring up religion, but like more spirituality. Um, for me, so I'm very hesitant to bring up religion because I don't want to turn people off to it. And but for me, I look at Jesus and the way that he lived his life. And I tried to replicate, years ago, everything, like I just tried to replicate it. Like that's in my mind, that's one of the paths. So that's one of the archetypes. Like Buddha, there's all sorts of stuff like that. I guarantee you the people that are meditating all day and that follow Buddhism, they could probably do this way better, way easier than I can.
Interesting.
But then,
But
meditation. I'm probably going to cut out the Jesus part. I don't want that on the podcast. um, because I'm not evangelical by any means. I don't care what people believe in. I'm just telling you what worked for me. Love is such a high vibrational frequency that in fact that's one of the key things in the like. There's some gnarly stuff, dude, in some of the OBEs, and I remember I was traversing through all sorts of stuff, and it was like this one was not chill. This was not a chill OBE. And I don't want to scare people though either because I don't think this is typical for people. Uh, but it's all I could do is remember to love everybody, and that's what got me through it. Because like I was getting it was not just me, and they were not human. Like these things were not human that I was dealing with.
were they tall and black? Were they tall and dark?
Not tall. I mean, there was. So I'll tell you I'll tell you the first one. I mean,
Yes.
if you really want to hear, let's get into the paranormal here.
Getting into Eric, getting his stories out. Let's go. Finally, after a year.
I appreciate you. So there is, one thing I discovered is these things can't cross over. Like I've got a big old bubble around my house that I specifically I worked on putting up, in the astral. And there was one night I started having a terrible dream, and the dream was it was I saw my dad in his office, and something started coming out of the printer, and it was there was like I didn't see what was written on it, but it looked like it was about to cut him. And so I woke up right away. And actually I woke up because I had a friend of mine call me, and he was like he's also into like he's extrasensory stuff, and he could sense something was wrong. So he called me. I woke up. I'm in a state. I feel like when I'm under stress like that, I can pop out of my body real easy. It's like a defense mechanism almost. Um, so I popped out and I flew behind my house, and I saw there was a guy in a dark cloak. So what you're talking about? Yeah, he was kind of tall. Um, but I saw him channeling energy into me. to create that dream. So what I did was um, I made it so that he couldn't do that anymore.
I
Um,
got an OBE shotgun and I
no,
took
not
him
a,
out.
no, I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to hurt him because, like I said, love. Um, I might edit this out of the part. I mean, this is good content though, frankly. Um, but I didn't want to hurt him. I I put him in a cage.
A cage of love.
Yeah, cage of love. Because I'm like, you can't, like, don't hurt me. Like, chill. Um, but it's wild because the exact spot, and I just view him as, I thought it was like some sorcerer or something. I don't know what it was. But
He's here.
yeah, like he's not here anymore. Um, but it was wild because this exact spot he was standing, there was a tree there, and like 4 or 5 years ago, so the top third of the tree broke off in a storm and flew about 50 feet, and it landed smack dab in the center of my garden. And at the time, gardening was something, it was incredibly grounding. Like I would spend hours every day in the garden just pruning my plants, and I got a tomato plant to grow like 10 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, so like it's wild because that's what I mean by the collapse of space and time is this thing had the ability to um, go back and do that because ultimately that kind of, it didn't mess up anything in my life, but like it deterred me from gardening for a couple of years, which was
Mm.
not very good. Um, but it gets even wilder because the following night, I didn't sleep at my house. I slept at someone else's house, and thousands of these things showed up. I told you that's when my body started shaking so violently that I had to go sit in the bathtub, and
Mm.
I could close my eyes. I could just see all these things.
Yeah.
So luckily they're just lower vibrational entities. Um, so I put them all in cages and then it stopped. Um, and it was wild, dude. This is, this is a very wild experience. And I don't want people to get deterred from having OBEs because by no means, this is not normal. Like this typically is, I've, I've never heard.
Well, I
Um,
do think when it comes to the fear aspect of when people sort of, I think one of the biggest deterrence of people actually getting into OBEs is primarily through like a religious response. That's
yes.
what I've seen. They believe it's demonic, which it makes no sense. If you
No.
like, like, how is the act of something that is so natural, which you've done as a child, primarily like it's been shown that like you like uncontrollably have a lot of your OBEs before the age of 7. That's when I naturally started to feel my OBEs. Then
Interesting.
years later, I recognized, okay, I wasn't falling in my dream. It was actually me falling back into my body. Yeah, I fell out of the bed sometimes, but who doesn't? But the vast majority of the times, it was an OBE. But because I was so young, didn't understand, it was not encouraged. It's almost like I always like to think of anything like ESP or extrasensory perception, not as an intuition, almost like a sense. I believe it's more so like a muscle. It's something that can be absolutely trained, and sometimes you can't overtrain the muscle. So when people think it's like, oh, I'm afraid to get into it, it's like you have to work to like towards getting to that. It's not like, oh, I can, okay. For me, I might have gotten to the vibration stage. Might take another person weeks or even months, but to be able to get to a level where you can have an OBE, to be able to get to a level where you are able to meet different beings, you're going out there with intent,
Yeah.
right? And I do think when it comes to like exploring something that it's absolutely natural for you to be able to do that. Why were we given this gift to be able to do so? But when it comes to like meeting people in other like areas and other realms, like we can refer back to Robert Monroe when he told one story. He was in bed with his wife. Everything's cool, and he got there's always a story of when you're having an OBE, there's like a guardian. Some people see their guardian. When I did Reiki, my guardian was there with me when super gifted guy. He actually was able to describe who my guardian was, which was like, whoa.
That's cool.
But
What did you describe him as?
white cloak, 6 foot, long, dark beard. Yeah, he described him as that. But when it goes to like meeting people, all right, like it's what you're. There's a couple of camps. There's a couple of theories. There was a friend of Robert Monroe who I forget his name is Dave or Ross or something. He has a podcast on Spotify. He knew him quite well. He basically talked about, you know, like that there's these. Oh no, it wasn't. It was another podcast. But basically, there's people called the Watchers.
Yes.
Tall, dark, very skinny, and they're pretty much there to like teach you a lesson. They look scary because of our social, like of our cultural interpretation of what like darkness is. We think like if I turn my light on red, you're going to think I look evil, or you're going to think I look like Darth Vader. So the reason why we think of them as scary is because they're tall, dark, skinny. We'd never seen it before. I'm sure there are absolutely beings out there that look frightening to us, but to them it's just normal. So there's absolutely bad and there's absolutely good beings. But I do think there, what you just said there, like, you know, just giving love is always going to be there. But I do think when it comes to also interacting with negative beings, there's always a purpose. There's always a lesson. That lesson of love that you've learned, you can transfer that to here.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree 100%, especially loving something like that that is trying to hurt you. And I don't think they were even trying to hurt me. It was just a lesson. Granted, I don't think they wanted to be. I went out and this might be, this is gonna get kind of wild, but like I let a bunch of them out after the fact, because I'm like, okay, these things are just like, I don't think either of us knew what we were dealing with.
None of them are paying rent. Get out of
No,
here.
yeah, but I mean, um, I did wonder if they were Watchers, especially looking at something like the Book of Enoch, where you've got the Watcher's story. Um, I don't know what the hell they were, but they, they were just very, more or less just kind of annoying. Um, it was, I've never experienced anything like that in my life, where I've, like, literally there were thousands, maybe not thousands, but there were hundreds, at least hundreds of them. Um, and it's wild because it's like one was there the night before. I put him in a cage, and then hundreds show up.
Dang, they're into it. Were they ghostly at all? Like, did they have form or?
They all, it was just cloaks, like black cloaks, like they look like sorcerers.
I've seen them.
Have
I've
you?
seen them before. Yeah, my dreams. I've seen them before in my dreams. Weird dream though. It was like I didn't understand the meaning behind the dream, but yeah, trippy when you first see them. That's
T-
what I would say.
tell me more. I'm curious.
When you saw them, what color were their eyes?
I don't remember. I didn't see their eyes.
Right. I remember for me, it was like every dream that I have, it's always about rescuing people. Whenever I have a dream, it's always about like someone's in danger. I need to come in for the rescue.
Yes.
You can probably do some like Freudian or Jungian. I'm not sure who is who, but for me, it's like my dreams are always I need to save someone and I need to do it quick, and there's a deadline to it. There's always like some sort of panic behind my dreams, the negative dreams, anyways. And I'm on a you know I'm on a mission. I'm on a solo mission. I need to help people, and I'm like on this it's almost like this archipelago, blue sky, super super blue sky, and the island's about to explode or something like that. I don't know. And I get people to safety, and I see three not so skinny figures, but these are people that are three beings, three forms, all dark, really, really red eyes coming towards me in pairs of three, just darting towards me. Never seen that before in my life. I've seen the only time when I've ever had a dream, it would be people. This was the first time ever. Like I remember a lot of my dreams where it was not human. And it was like a completely it was a real surreal feeling. And I got out of there so quick. It was I couldn't love that. I couldn't give love to whatever
Yeah.
that was. It's like
Okay.
we're good there. You can stay there. You can have that island.
Yeah.
But when it comes to beings like that, like I think the most important thing that you said was the lesson. I didn't learn that lesson. There could have been a lesson I learned there that could have like leveled me up a little bit more. But you got that lesson. It's like, it's you can probably like cut it so many different ways. It's like, it could be like love thy neighbor, or it could
Yes,
be like even if
exactly.
someone that's the thing. Or it could even be like, even if someone's like doing you wrong, you still give them love.
Yeah.
And you still like there's so many ways to cut it.
So I have an interesting you mentioned DMT earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I have a couple DMT experiences. Um have you tried it?
Not yet. I'm trying to convince my shaman. And he's like, "You're not yet." I'm like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, I've no desire to do it again. Like it's maybe someday. But it is, and I'll tell you why I don't, because are you familiar with breaking through?
Breaking through.
Breaking through on DMT. So I'll explain it. So what happened? This was years ago. Um, I meditated before for like 30 minutes, then I prayed for like 30 minutes because DMT in my mind, that's not a drug, dude. Um,
It's alive.
yeah, it's weird. Like it's not a drug, but it's more of a tool. It's like technology. It's like consciousness technology.
Mhm.
Um, so an intention is huge. So I had to meditate, prayed, and then I took it and I popped out. And this, I think I had OBEs prior to this. But this was different. This was like an assisted technology OBE. So, and I did have a guide. I had a spirit guide, and he took me up, and there was a dome. Oh, you know what? Let me go. I gotta plug in my laptop. Hold that thought.
World in a thought. This is going to be a blooper.
Sorry, I did not realize it was unplugged. I got the low power, the energy saver. Um, so what happened was I I had this spirit guy. This I don't know what it was. It was a guy took me up to the top of a dome, and he said, "Do you want to see the nature of your reality?"
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah, and of course I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm here for, you know. Let's go. Let's dive right in. So he opened up the dome and we started cycling through the only thing I could describe it as is different dimensions. And we were cycling through so many of them until he got to the spot where we had to go, and every like one of the dimensions I saw, like um it's gonna sound stupid, but everything was gears. Like I saw gears everywhere, and it just for like a split half a second, and then we were cycling through all these dimensions, and we landed in this dimension he wanted to show me, and everything was made out of light. Uh, all the buildings, the roads, the people. Granted, this could have been just my perception of it,
Mm-hmm.
but everything was very bright, and we walked around for like 2 hours. And the only thing I can remember is that he said, in my reality, forgiveness is a superpower. And then the other thing I remember is I looked down and I realized I didn't have a body and I started freaking out. That's when I popped back into my body.
Because when I looked down, I realized I didn't have pants. I was like, "That's the thing you're
Yeah,
worried about."
yeah, no. Well, no, I started wearing. I'm like, how do I get back to my body? Because I was just pure consciousness, um, and then I did snap back into my body, and I woke up in bed, and it was wild because I was surrounded by what I can only describe as like these angelic beings that were like watching over my body while I was gone. It was just so that's why I'm like, I don't need to do that again. Like, I someday when the time is right, um, but it would just be, um, I don't know,
A
it's like,
welcome home, almost.
yeah, pretty much. And but like it blew my mind for like a month after that. Like I was good on that. I didn't need to see that again. Yeah.
That's amazing. Damn.
So
Oh, that sounds so cool.
yeah, it was interesting. Um, it's definitely there's definitely more to life and reality than I think. Actually, I think a lot of people are starting to realize that.
Hmm. I think people are starting to like snap out of what there's like. You go to work and you do your job, and then you role play as the store manager, and then you go home, then you take the mask off, and then you are who you are. But like you're role playing as another person. You're role
Yeah.
playing as who you think you are. But then like you just kind of forget to take off that mask when you get home, and then you're just like playing a person and not like really understanding like there is a little bit more than what's going on in this room. The light here, the table, the laptop, the computer, the Wi-Fi, the camera that I'm looking at you through here.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're so caught up in what's going on and everything. Like it's like it's 5 a.m. here. Oh my god, I gotta go to work. I gotta go to bed. Da, 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 da. But I do think there's so much out there, so much out there, and like we're so afraid to
Yes.
even touch it.
Well, I mean, we've been conditioned to be afraid. Like I'm talking to you, this is the first time I've shared with just a couple of people, but I feel
Mhm.
like, it'd be interesting for people to hear this. Yeah.
Well, we can dive right into that.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things that you're talking about, which is very interesting. There's two things I'm like, oh, I need to ask. It's like assistive technologies for OBEs. Now, you said that specifically, so I'm sure you've done a little bit of research on that. I want to pick your brain on that. So, assisted technology relating to OBEs, is that purely like hemispherical synchronization? I know it's the technology, but broader sense binaural beats, or are there more technologies out there that induce an OBE?
I mean, that's a very good question. I think obviously we talked about DMT. That's probably the most obvious, and I wouldn't even consider that like, yeah, I would consider it's a different type of OBE. Um, like the various types I've had, the most pleasant one I've ever had was I was more in line with what like Robert Monroe talks about, where I was flying down a highway trying to look for my fishing spot because I wanted to see the river level, and I remember the streetlights and the cars. I could hear the cars rushing by. And I was flying on the road along the river, and that was so chill. Um, that was one of the that was a couple of years ago. Um, that was very chill because fishing. Like I love fishing.
So you would classify it as meditation would be, and like, I'd say like a very ancient technology
Yes.
related to OBEs and then DMT itself. Would you know of any other technologies, or is it just those two?
Well, the hemispheric synchronization too. That's big, and a lot of that is it's increasing the coherence between the hemispheres of your brain, and like the isochronic padding tones that you follow left and right, combined with the uh, binaural theta tone in the background. That has induced and that was the. I mean, do you know what? That induces some weird OBEs.
7.83?
I mean, that's the Schumann. Yeah, that's the. I find that to be very grounding. Yeah. but like one of them, I recently made a track, 4.7 hertz theta, and then I think it was 13 hertz a beta padding. So it's like it's keeping your brain in the theta state, but in the beta state. So it's both.
Mm,
Um, but typically, I found theta to be the most effective, pure theta, and I think that's just because it's REM. You know, it's REM. Your body is naturally producing DMT in that state. You know, it's causing you to dream. That's, you know, at least that's um, what I've heard, right? Have you heard that
mhm.
or? Uh,
DMT. I understand REM. For me, meditation is like that OBE tool,
yeah.
but it's a very powerful tool. Like I remember when I first got into, I'm very obsessive when it
Yeah.
comes to things that I do. So when it comes to like finance, when it comes to like the current work that I do, I'm very obsessed.
Mhm.
And I do think if anyone does decide to use your work, and they also like look into like Robert Monroe stuff when it comes to Hemisync, really dialing down the basics when it comes to meditation is far more powerful than getting into like very advanced like breath work or box work, or like there's, for anyone's out there listening, like there's different sort of tools and techniques that you can use, which is being practiced by the Monroe Institute that they've made, which Monroe that they've made. So there's like
Mhm.
different focuses. So like focus 1, focus 3, focus 10, 12, 15, it goes all the way up to like 20 something, which is insane. But when it came to that, like there's the energy conversion box, all these things where it's like a protocol. What I found when I got deep into meditation, I solely focused on the beginning protocol of, I would listen to your track and I would just do like the first couple of tools. So it was like energy conversion box, which is, if anyone doesn't know, it's basically where you are putting your thoughts or any negative things that are going on in your head. You put it into this imaginary box. You think about the detail, like the clasp. You think about the table. You think about the location where you're putting the box. You try and make it as real as possible. You put the thoughts in. That's an energy conversion box. You close the lid. You throw it away, so you have a clear mind. And
Interesting.
then works. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you go into focus. So like different focus levels have the whole purpose of focus, whatever number it's attached to it, is essentially it uses self hypnosis and to essentially like bring down your perception of what your body is like, where it is, where it's at. And you naturally hold tension all of your body when you're going to sleep. Because like sometimes my eyelids are always tense when I'm about to fall asleep. So I go into the focus. So you shut off different parts of your body over time, and you're intentionally telling your body to sleep. But I started to hone in on that like to a brutal level. Like I became a hardcore like focus 10 addict, and to the point where I got so good at it, I was able to actually get into REM sleep within seconds.
Hmm.
And I found that there was this one specific track. It was like a bootleg SoundCloud Hemisync track, which I will not tell you I will not tell anyone publicly the location of, because they're going to remove it, because they're very good at
Yeah.
protecting their sounds. But when it came to that, I found that it was like a bootleg clip, and it's very important because at 7 minutes it would skip onto the next track.
Hmm.
And I found I was able to get into a hypnagogic state at sub 7 minute level because I just focused on that one specific tool. It's like I just focused on like turning each part of my body off within sub 7 minutes. I was in the hypnagogic state. Mm.
Very. That's interesting. Yeah, that's cool. That's for people that don't know. That's the state between. That's the moment between being awake and asleep. It's like you're right on the threshold. Um, it's
But
cool. You go.
no, just saying, but it's also a muscle. Like I said, like ESP is a muscle. Getting into the hypnagogic state, it is absolutely something that you can manipulate and expand further. And I think I shared it in the community there. I had a Miro board, and I had this, it was like consciousness, the hypnagogic state, and then subconscious. And every, like I'd say the average person, like their hypnagogic state is like teeny tiny, teeny tiny. But you do these meditative practices, you can expand the hypnagogic state to quite a length, to the point where like you could be in the hypnagogic state for like 5 days a week. You're not actually in the subconscious. Your body's sleeping, but you're
Hmm.
actually awake 5 days a week. That's trippy.
Yeah, that's wild. I think I need to study. So I've admittedly, and I think this is kind of funny, is I've never actually read any of Robert Monroe's work.
You told me. I was
I
like,
told you
dang.
that. Yeah, so like one of the things I've done is just experience on my own, explore, and um granted I read some of the hemisphere synchronization stuff.
Yeah,
But in terms of like his actual writings, I've got a book now by Thomas Campbell that,
my big toe.
yes, My Big Toe. So, have you read that?
Not yet.
Okay.
The word toe just turns me off. I'm like, you could have said anything else besides toe.
It is weird. It is a little, I thought that too. Um, but I think it's time for me at least to kind of dig into what other people have done. Um,
Dude,
so I do think in terms of meditation, one thing I did learn is totally different effects meditating in the sunlight during the day versus at night. Um, that's that's key. There's something to that. I don't exactly know what. Um, but if you look at all of the energy that we have in the sun, that the sun does, like we wouldn't be here without that, you know? Uh, so I think just absorbing that energy and like I had some wild experiences. I used like 8 years ago. Um, and this is another one. So 8 years ago I was meditating a couple hours every day out on my deck in the sun and listening to these hemisphere synchronization tracks. And I started to get all these visions. I would see all sorts of stuff. And it was a time in my life. It was sort of, do you know what like a dark night of the soul is?
why does it sound familiar?
It's just like a really dark period that it's like a lesson. You're supposed to get through it. Or shadow work, that's another one. Um, so I was dealing with a lot of that and I was trying to figure out a way through it. And the way through it I found was meditation. So I started seeing all of these these things, and I was working in video games at the time. East I was more so I wasn't working, I was making mods. So I was in school for programming and I was modding a game called Arma 3. And
I love Arma.
seriously?
Yeah, it's the best game ever.
Yes.
Super difficult,
Yeah, dude,
but fun.
I my hours on Arma, I think I've got over 3,000 hours.
Mm.
Yeah.
Why does every Arma player say like, oh yeah, I don't play that much? Like, how many hours do you have? Like
Yeah,
6,000.
dude. It's
What the hell, man?
that game is in my opinion, that's one of the best games that was ever created. But I did a ton of modding for it. Not a ton, but like I'd make my own maps but anyways, I was meditating and I saw the entire esports industry or the entire video game industry and something was
I
telling
gotcha.
um up your pick.
Oh, you cut out. I
Okay.
thought it was some intelligence agency trying to fucking cut this podcast off. Bleep that out, by the way.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. The But it was interesting because I saw the entire industry. Something told me to pick a um, pick something, and it showed me even the patents to write. So as I was meditating, and it was crazy because I was building I built a tournament platform, struggled for like 8 years, dude. Like esports is a hell of an industry to try to get into. Like everybody was trying to make money. All the VCs were putting money in and getting desperate, trying to get a return on their investment. People were losing money left and right, including us. We found it very hard to monetize, but it's at the end of the vision I had, it um, showed me getting into a betting esports betting, betting, and I'm like, at the time, I'm like, that's I don't bet. Like I'm trying to be a good person. It's not like, granted, it's not bad. Um, it freaked me out enough though. I remember calling a trusted friend of mine, and I'm like, I think I'm supposed to rate these patents, and then like eventually they're going to be used in betting, and it's crazy because a couple of weeks ago I licensed them to a betting company.
There you go. Well done.
Yeah, it just kind of fell into my lap.
That's
So
amazing, man. Fantastic. Because you've been working on those patents for quite some time.
yeah.
What kind of is it like a device patent? Is it a software patent? Like what exactly is it?
Methods and systems patent. So it's financial transaction technology. So what we would do is, um, what we would do is, uh, it would cover an entry fee into a turn. So it wasn't even betting. I didn't start out in betting. It was an entry fee into a match, and then with the prize pool distribution, um, based on in-game data. And you're frozen again.
Yeah, I'm frozen too. You're frozen as well.
Um, there we go. Well, oddly enough, um, the the way that they were doing it at the time was the tournament organizer had to take a screenshot of or the tournament. If you want a match, you had to send the tournament organizer a screenshot of showing proof that you won. And that was the standard. That was the standard. It was ridiculous. People were sending prize pools through Venmo, and there was no solution. So that's what we fixed, and it applies to betting too.
Dang.
Um, so that's where the money is. So
OBE assistive technology stuff. I was like, damn,
yeah.
I want to try it out. Yeah, but I did
Oh, you keep freezing.
to touch upon, which was, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. You just
Oh, yeah. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
okay. I can see both of us, so it's recording still.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You were talking about defense mechanisms within the OBE, and I think that's a very interesting topic. And I tell you why it's an interesting topic, because I think it kind of goes back to maybe there's a podcast with Danny Jones, and he had Whitley Strieber on. And for people who don't know who Whitley Strieber is, he is a person who has described experiences with extraterrestrial life,
Yes.
and he's really big into it. Wrote a book. The book terrified people who also had experiences, and it blew up. And he was on this podcast, and he described how, as he claimed that he went through a lot of stuff as a child, and there were people involved, and it almost like Danny Jones described it perfectly. It was like cracking your cosmic egg. And it really resonated with me because, like, a lot of the people that I know who have like traits of extrasensory perception, or they've done meditative practices before, because I think there's a camp, okay? There's a camp where you do meditation, nothing happens, and then you do meditation and crazy, for some specific reason, there's a very odd correlation between high stress environments as young children versus a person who's just had a pretty decent life. Now, are there outliers in between? Of course there has to be. But what I found is super interesting is that a lot of the people that, who have had that cosmic egg cracked, it could be a traumatic experience, or it could be a
Yes.
traumatic event, or it could be a high stress, like you could say like an acute response to stress at one particular event in your childhood's life. And what I found is like a lot of people who have these extrasensory perceptions have had something or a chronic like exposure of events that have happened to them as a child growing up, and that was interesting. And I was just like, yeah,
Makes sense. That makes sense. So like 100%, it's turning, the darker it is, the more like it's in.
for me it was like people who have had a history of extrasensory perception or are easily able to tap into anything woo woo. So like OBEs, near death experiences, remote viewing, um, contacting. We could even talk about that. You know,
Let's
talking about buddies from there.
yeah.
I was we can talk about. Will we talk about that?
Yeah, are you comfortable talking
Yeah,
about spheres and
let's go.
okay.
So the turning point for me that got me my big boy pants on to reach out to Eric was I had this utter and literal fascination with the stars out of nowhere. Just weird. I would stare at the stars for hours. And I mean, like, I would stay up until like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, wait for it to like hit 4 a.m. nonstop every night to the point where I became fascinated. I would know if I had the windows closed, the blinds closed, I would know when there would be a starry night. I would know when there would be clouds. I would not know the weather. I am allergic to the weather app. I think I don't believe in it. That's how, like, I knew what the weather was out even when I didn't even know what it was outside. And I remember when I looked up at the stars, I always had this feeling of like love, compassion, feeling of happiness.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, that felt amazing. Or like I'd have a deep, meaningful conversation with someone, and I would help shift their perspective on something. And I was like, oh, the feeling of success and happiness and accomplishment. I saw a shooting star.
Been there.
Remember that?
Yeah.
You see the shooting star, you're like, you wish upon it, and then you just go about your day. And then the next night, you see another shooting star. And then the next night, you see another shooting star. Where I'm at now, we don't get shooting stars. I've never ever seen a shooting star up until there. Like, it's a clear correlation between me feeling appreciative, looking at the stars, and then seeing that. So I'm like, okay, I look outside my window every night and I repeat the same feeling. Like, I think about something good that happened, a shooting star. I was like, okay, my science brain is tingling. And I would do this for weeks. Okay. And every night I'd see it. But the thing was, whenever I would see a shooting star, I would freak out, like, oh my God, that was it. But I remember one night I was watching Whitley Strieber again, and he said they don't like it when you show emotion. They think it's a little bit immature when you show emotion like that. They go like, they're sort of expecting you to be like, hey, okay, you saw me, be a little bit almost adult about it. It's very hard to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very hard when you see something that happens like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I tried holding it in one night. So I went out and I realized I was developing a protocol. I would look outside, I saw it, and I was just like holding it in. I was like, composure, another one happened.
Yeah.
And then, okay, that was enough for me. I was ecstatic. But then the next night, I was ready for it. So I'd look up, I would do this protocol, and as I would progress deeper into getting this protocol, I would have different senses. So I have tinnitus.
I do too.
It's there we go. So, but you can tell what frequency the tinnitus is.
Yes.
But the more you do the protocol, the more you realize there's different tones that you hear the deeper you go into the protocol. Or especially at night, I hear about 3 or 4 frequencies. Like I heard it a couple hours ago, but now it's gone. So you do the protocol, you can hear the frequencies, and you have to like. It's very hard to describe, but you know what to do once you hear a specific frequency. And I was looking up in the sky. I remember I was like communicating in my head. I didn't know what I was thinking. I thought I was going crazy. I went like, I just need to see something. So what I saw was huge ball of light came in, popped, and came out again. And it wasn't like a shooting star. A shooting star, the way would it do, it would like come in really, really bright, and then it would like cone out. It would almost like look like a cone because it'd burn up in the atmosphere and it'd go. This time it was like like a straight line off a ruler. It was super straight, popped in again, and it just disappeared. Blew my mind. Next day, did it again. But I remember I was like, okay, this could be just a shooting star. I could be tripping balls. I don't know what I'm doing. I remember there's been stories of people who've been experiencing that, like experiencing orbs, and we've always pushed the limit. I was like, okay, what else do you got? I don't think you're real. And I've compared this with every story. They always do something magnificent. As like they put the ball back in your court. As like, yeah, so what? So I got ballsy, which you should never do with with ET.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think you're real. Show me what you got. And I remember it was dead of night, 3 a.m. Nothing, dead silent. I did my protocol. And I remember it was like this orange ball light arced. And I mean like almost like a 270 degrees. It just like that. They shut me up. I was like, okay, fair enough. I get it. Okay, you're real. And with my experience with that, I would see different color orbs. So there was blue, there was white, there was orange. I've never seen like reds or anything like that. It was always those three particular colors.
Do you,
And then
do you think the colors mean anything, or is it just different?
mm, probably difference the meaning of color.
I suppose that's a very difficult question. Without actually, they would probably have a better response.
I I think the response was very clear. It's like, yeah, we're here. You know what I mean? And I think that was like the main action. But the color might have been very interesting. Maybe if you get like what color spitballing, like the color orange, what frequency would the color orange be on the light spectrum? You play that tone, and then it could be something like that.
That's a good idea. That's a very good idea. Keep going with your story, though. This is very enlightening.
Oh yeah. So when I came to that, I got deep into it, and it's almost like the more you practice it, the more it's almost like not a. I don't like saying the word download. I think for me, it's like you get a task and you understand what task you're getting, and you need to understand why you've gotten it and how it applies. Because what I was basically not being trained, but like what I was being understood, told. What I was being told what to do was like developing a protocol to be able to make contact. And it was very specific. It needed to be done in a sequence. And every time I would pass this like trial or whatever the case may be, I immediately got like a feeling, not of euphoria, but of like I knew it was a sense of accomplishment. And then the communication got deeper. So first it became the balls of light, the orbs. They would do something, they would do like acrobatics in the sky. Then it actually came down to the thought communication, but it was one way. And I remember one specific night, um, I wasn't greedy, but I was a little bit like, okay, what's going on here? Because it kept on getting harder and harder. Every task I was getting, it became more difficult to actually be able to complete it. It took me longer. And I'm still stuck on this. I haven't even touched it in months. But I remember once I completed that, I was able to speak through using my thought to talk. And I was like, if you're out there, show me a sign. Something just blinked in the sky. I'm like, okay, what could that be? Could be a supernova. It could be a plane. It could be a satellite. So you're rattling off all the logical options and then you're sort of like narrowing down a couple of things. It's none of those. I was like, okay, is that you? Every time I would ask a question, it would blink. So then I was like, oh, okay. What else do we got here? I was like, one blink for yes, two blink for no. Are you there? Blink. What's your name? Blink, blink. I was like, what does no mean? It didn't like being called a name. I was like, okay, I'm gonna call you. I remember the night, and it sounds so stupid, but I said, okay, blink, blink, and I started. It was like a yes no conversation through that, and then what I remember, it was like multiple blinks in the sky. It was like a firework at night. And that was like, that was it for me.
Do you still communicate with them like that?
No, unfortunately not. It probably takes me a couple of weeks to be able to do it because it is, anyone can literally do it. That's the thing though. Absolutely anyone, but it does take patience
What
and you can't rush it.
what you just described, I 100% understand what you mean by cosmic now, because that was almost identical to when I went through when I told you I was getting the patent stuff and showing and like being shown what to do. Um, yeah, I see what you mean now. In fact, I was so the emotional response you talked about. Oh yes, oh yes. Being raised Christian, dude, I was very stubborn. I was very, very stubborn, but you know what? They are very, very patient.
They are.
Um, yeah, they're very, very patient, and um, it's that's the funny part is it's like almost identical. Where I had 10 nights of visitations, and every single night I was like the same thing as you. I didn't see orbs. This was more of really. There was one night I remember a type of craft. Um, but the other nights were it was like it would pull my consciousness out and interact with me, and not my consciousness, but it's really weird, man. It's really weird to even describe like
Mm,
um book of I don't want to bring up the book of Enoch again, but like people that are communicating with these things, they think like I thought I did I it's still a little confusing. It's becoming clearer, but um like communicating with God. People I could see why people thousands of years ago would think that.
mm,
Um because that's the stubborn piece that because they straight up told me they were like they said humans you've been genetically modified many, many times. Humans have, and I was so stubborn, dude. I was like, no, God created us, and just think I'm very happy they're patient. Um,
I'm very happy they're right.
yes, yes. Um, because the evidence and frankly, when this comes out, there's gonna be all sorts of people like me, I guess, that have this it's going to conflict with so many belief systems that have been built up
Mhm.
over thousands of years. Um, Granted, I think some of them are very good, but like we've changed so many different belief systems, and it's it's above my pay grade. I'll say that.
When you even think about religion, I do think like the essence of a religion is supposed to be hands down, we need it. I do think we absolutely need it. But I do think, over time through like socio influence, cultural influence, obviously I do think, the one thing that annoys me so much, I know we're not supposed to be talking about religion, but like the book of Genesis,
Yeah.
my
What?
three favorite chapters, the first three chapters of Genesis, fallen. I'd spend an hour on each chapter just reading it, understanding it. I'd love the story of it. And then it just like when you read it, it's almost like someone ripped off the page of chapter 3 and they didn't give me the sauce.
Well, they
And it's
did.
like it's in Enoch.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, it's an Enoch.
But what I was saying was I do think when it comes to religion, I do think there's so many overlaps of what spirituality should be, but it's almost there's been so many iterations of it. But I do think, there's this ultimate, it kind of comes down into like one convergence. And I do think like every religion sort of comes to that in their own different way. And I do think like the science of consciousness or, if you want to go that for me, that would be more like qualitative. If you want to go more, no, quantitative would be science of consciousness. Spirituality would be like the holistic, the qualitative aspect of things. Even if you take that on like a multi-axial graph, 3D, it still sort of converges into like what consciousness is supposed to be. It's supposed to be about love, it's supposed to be about appreciation, it's supposed to be about forgiveness, and it's supposed to be about like obviously us ascending through higher levels over time. but it's just going to take a little bit of time for people to get there.
Oh yeah, one at a time.
One at a time. What else? What else were we talking about? Talking about the OBEs. Yeah, those orbs. Haven't spoken to them. They're very patient.
Yes.
They like things done a specific way,
How
especially.
that?
Emotional states. They're very receptive to that. They don't like it. Like when I listen to specific music beforehand, they're like, "Nah, you're done for the night," and you can feel it. You can definitely feel it. Like you can feel not when you tick them off, but when it's like you need to come into this with a little bit more respect for yourself. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay,
So they don't like ego, which because that's emotion that's tied to ego, which is separation from
not at all.
one. That is very fascinating.
There were times where like obviously music influences you and makes you feel certain ways.
Yeah.
I couldn't listen to music. I had to like be quiet. I had to be grounded. I had to be like, it was almost like I had to like show them that I was ready to talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if I listened to music or if caffeine, stimulants, nicotine didn't affect it, but like it's almost like, you know, it's almost like you went to your friend's parents' house. You had to be on your best behavior. That's what it felt like.
I I know exactly what you're talking about. In fact,
Yes.
it's like when you go to work out, I play specific music to get me all amped up. Or when I'm pissed off, I'll have music that'll corroborate being angry or even, but frequencies, you don't have that with frequencies either. Um, that's more pure. It's less ego because it's music is it's that's very fascinating. That's probably the most beneficial, helpful piece of info I've heard in a while because reliance on music. There's so many people that rely on it. It just feeds the ego.
Yeah.
Um,
It does.
it's acceptance. I think acceptance is the answer to everything, and
Mm-hmm.
that's lack of answer, acceptance of the past, whatever mistakes I might have made, whatever decisions. It's just acceptance. Everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's fascinating because I have another program I go to where that's what is taught. Um, but that's very enlightening.
Well, then I don't even know what I'm like. We're just talking about experiences
Yeah,
and we're like finding little nuggets along the way.
yeah, no
But I do
kidding.
think, like, for someone with no experience looking to get into even this is one thing I've had this massive question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have such a massive library. Where do you even begin?
Right. So it's the massive library. There's playlists on there that you can go to. But frankly, on the app, we've 8 categories. So I've taken a lot of the tracks, the newer tracks, um, popular tracks, put them on there, and it's just the 8 categories right now. We are going to be reorganizing them, but yeah, I agree. There's a ton of binaural on there, and the newer ones, like they keep improving as I learn new methods, new techniques. A lot of it I rely on solfeggio tones as carrier tones. One, because they sound good, they sound nice together, and there's these other purported effects. But really, the entrainment is what you go for. And uh, what would be? Do you have? How would? So you brought up a very good point. What would make it easier for you to find what you're looking for?
What would make it easier? That's a fantastic question. A question with a good question attached to it. Maybe like a beginner's guide, like the way Robert Monroe like did the guided meditation. It's almost like you give such powerful tools, and sometimes it's like a sandbox. I need a because because people who haven't experienced it just yet, but when it comes to listening to Eric's like tracks, his work, there are specific videos that make you feel specific things. Because like I feel the back of my head tingling when I listen to one specific track. I think it's the 30 hertz. And when I'm working, it feels great. It's like, oh, it feels fantastic. But then there's other ones that make you feel like it's like one that makes you feel altered state of consciousness, another like a specific body part starts to resonate. It maybe if it was like almost like a how to or like a guided meditation and be like, what you think would be the best practice? And I think like because you're almost like a natural at it, it's like, okay, how do I sort of break down the natural protocol that I've developed over time, which that's a task in itself.
Mhm.
But if it was almost like a guided step and breaking down, so I love tech. I love understanding the mechanisms behind what's working. And I'm like, I love like FF4, frequency following response, or understanding like isotonic tones, isochronic. It's like, how do they work? I love understanding everything.
Mhm.
So for me, I love the technicality of it. For someone else, they just may like to listen to it because it's there. So it's almost like you have so many different categories you could actually play with. You could do it like something that's guided, that'd be great. Or you could also almost like do like an info video, like how you actually or like make a sound and why it's effective. That would also be like really cool. So you have so much to play with, and that's actually like a lot of content that you can do with that. I just can't give you a direct answer because I love it.
No, it helped. I appreciate that because I think the same thing, and it's part of my ADHD brain is it's just it's there. In fact, that's one of the things we're working on lately is coming up with a daily category, so different type of track every day. Today it's Delta. Tomorrow it's a different one. And then uh, obviously got a lot of people that love Theta. Uh, so yeah, you're spot on. There's
Damn CAA. There we go.
no, I've got a 100-foot. I got a 100-foot cable running from my router to my PC. So that's
That's crazy.
yeah,
Also, can you tell me more about this app?
yeah,
The Elevate app. That is something I've been wanting to pick your mind about. I now just came back into my head. Can
yeah,
you tell me more about the app that you've been developing, like the progression behind it, the specific audio track that you use? Like,
yeah. I'd love to. So the Elevate app, the reason why that was created was it offers pure wave format audio files as opposed to MP4. So YouTube it compresses it. On the app, it's wave format, so it's a lot crisper, a lot cleaner. Um, it's more effective, and it's an audio player, so you don't have ads. It is $5 a month or $50 a year. Once we hit 2,000 subscriptions, then we'll build in a free tier. I know a lot of people have asked about that. Um, so have you tried it? Have you messed around with it?
not yet. I need
Okay.
the Stripe link.
Okay.
I need that Stripe link. Because I remember I
Yeah.
said it's like because the way my Google is set up,
Yep.
it's just putting the payment processor in. It's a load of crap. So I was just like, I remember I asked you about the Stripe. I'll probably get the Stripe tonight, and I can download it and like listen to it because that's something I want to do. Because like if it's something that's more effective and increases the effectiveness of like even meditation, that's more than the value of that alone. If we're breaking it down in terms of like qualitative sleep, cognition and stuff like that, like dude,
Yeah. I agree. That's how we did it. Like I've been using it to listen to the Delta tracks lately to go to sleep. Um, and it is like the recent Delta track I made, I think 3 days ago. I fell asleep in about 15 minutes. Um, and that's done REM sleep. That's deeper. REM sleep is a little more, um, I don't know, a little more fun. But
REM sleep is a whole different kettle of fish. I'll tell you that. When you're mixing like REM and hypnagogic state, you're playing with stuff.
oh yeah,
It's almost like the hitchhiker effect as well. Like when you're conscious, what I'm saying is what I found because I've honing in on the basics. Anyone who's getting into meditation, master the basics. Get very good at like just like folk whoever's like getting into it, like even with the Robert Monroe stuff, because it is very like user friendly. Like get good at focus 3, focus 10, focus 12. Get good at the resonant balloon. I think it's the one where you create the balloon around yourself. That's universal, by the way.
Oh yeah, I know how to do that. That's like the ball of light, right?
Yeah, you create a ball of light from your head, then you bring it around to your feet, then you channel it back up again, and then you're able to expand it and like contract it. I still have a little bit of trouble doing that, but it's still very powerful. Like get good at that and then start experimenting with the hypnagogic state. You're gonna find a lot of the ESP comes from that. I don't know why, but for me, when it came to actually discovering like, contact, or when discovering like I was able to predict. Did I tell you about this?
Remind me.
Predicting numbers.
No.
Oh, okay. So it got really deep to the point, like this was what I was saying, like people who just meditate and there's nothing, and then there's people who get into meditations, like it opens up this Pandora's box. So for me, I was able to predict, and I know it's freaky, it's almost like impossible to believe, but I was able to predict things up to like 6 digits. So that meant date of births, that meant like a specific month. Two random people have met, went to like siblings, that went to like specific phone numbers that would sort of come up, that would come up to like how much money a person would have in their bank account. I've never tried it on a pin. I've never tried it on like on a debit card pin. It's never happened to me. But like there's the certain situation where it would happen, it would be almost like a sense. Like it's almost like when you get deep into ESP, it's like this. There's a difference between like a sense, and then there's a difference between a thought. A sense, it's almost like an involuntary movement. It's like a tick. A thought, it's intentional.
Yeah.
And it's like the more you sort of get into the rhythm of what a sense is, that's what it is. That's what I felt. So like even with numbers, I remember it first happened where I was in an airport and my gate number was about to come up. So in every airport, the big thing where it says plane, location, gate number. And it was like, when you're looking at it, it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You're okay, can I get a coffee before then? Am I going to miss my flight? It's like, no, it takes like 30 minutes to be able to like board a plane. And it said less than 1 minute. I remember I looked at it, I was like, what's the gate number to my flight? And it said 14. I heard it. Seconds later, 14. I'm like, coincidence. So then I got big into meditation, and the more of that started happening as like deeper I got into meditation.
Synchronizations. Yeah.
Could be that, but it was like the more I got into the hypnagogic state, the more of that hitchhiker effect sort of bled into the everyday life. And then the freaky stuff starts to happen, which is interesting. Have you experienced that?
I think so. I mean, the freaky stuff, you're talking, like, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Feeling other people's emotions.
Yes. Hearing their thoughts. Yes, I'm empathic. Yes. I need to be very careful, especially when my guard is down. Because it's a transference of energy, but you know what? I discovered is, even the transference of energy, you can use that. Like if negative energy is transferred over to you, you just transmute that.
Mm.
And that's what I discovered, at least. And that's kind of the transcendence of good and bad, right and wrong, where, negative, I'll just turn that into positive.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, otherwise it's stuck to me. Um, so yes, I need to be very careful around. And even hearing other people's thoughts when I'm right next to them, like not over here, I can't hear your thoughts, but like I'd what I, but like it would happen sporadically where I would, I'd hear what they were going to say before they said it.
Mm.
Um, and that was kind of cool. Like it's kind of like Indra's net type of where we're all sort of interconnected as one.
It's freaky. I remember one time I felt the emotion of a woman before. Like, yeah, it was very weird. I remember I used to work in retail. So like hundreds of people could be in the store at the same time.
Yep.
And I remember it hit like when you feel someone's emotion, it's like it's very it's not violent, but it's sudden. That's how I would describe it. It's like this sudden blast of emotion and you're freaking out. It's like, oh, is this me? Am I going bipolar? What's going on? Am I having a panic attack? What the hell? Why is there so much of so like you're going up and down? It's a yo-yo, and then it stopped. And then I felt like feminine energy, but it was like of a woman blushing.
Hmm.
And it was the weirdest, the absolute most fascinating feeling. And I remember I was going through it, and every time a person would walk past me as they would come around the till, I realized it wasn't me, it was them. And it was an old lady. She was like
Yes.
it was that was her. And then I was like, oh wait, you're very sad. And I felt his sadness. Like, you're very happy. You're very normal. I was like, oh, okay. But like how I was able to like distinguish between my emotions and their emotions is like happiness. I do think when it comes to happiness, like there's different levels of serotonin. Like the serotonin in your brain is going to be very different to the levels of serotonin in my brain. And it's almost like a taste. It's like you can just about tell the difference that it's not your emotion, but it's someone else's because you're very familiar with your own emotions,
Yep.
and that's how I was able to like distinguish what feeling was
Hmm.
from my own.
Do you still experience that?
No, that would drive me insane.
Yes. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and especially in retail, you get all sorts of people like that. In fact, I had to learn that what I had to go through exactly what you just described, where I'm like, okay, this is their emotion, this is not my emotion, because it would go away if I disconnected, unless there was like some sort of transference, which rarely happens. Um, um, but yeah, it's a trip. That's cool.
Wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely wild,
I love hearing this because it makes me feel a little less, it makes me feel normal.
dude. It's just so different. I just like you get used to it, but like it's a muscle at the end of the day. Like I think I've said it multiple times, but like to keep up ESP in your life, you have to have the intent to have it in your life because it's like the way it sort of affected my life is that it just made it interesting. But you have to keep up with meditation.
Yeah.
But it's almost like the best way I could describe it is like a lag phase. You put so much effort into meditation, and the ESP will like violently spike one time. You can stop the meditation. It's still going to be quite high, but it's like slowly going to taper out. So like right now, like there's nothing weird going on. But for me, if I wanted to get back into it, I would have to put a lot of work into it, and then it's going to come back up again.
Yep.
And then if you stop, it'll just slowly come back down. So you can incorporate ESP into your life, but it's like whether a person has dedication or not to actually get to that. That's the big thing.
It's motivating me because frankly, I haven't been meditating as much as I
Yeah.
used to. I think that would be a good starting point.
For everyone involved as well. Like, it's definitely something. Yeah, there's scary parts, and yeah, there's like really cool parts, and don't even think about the negative aspect of things. Like, think of how good it can be. Like, yeah, you have to get the good and the bad. Like, you could, God forbid, you could get fucking struck by lightning. It doesn't mean that you're going to be like afraid to go out, walk the streets. It's just deal with it. Like, there's going to be good beings and there's going to be bad beings. You're going to get great experiences, then you're going to get bad experiences. It doesn't matter. It's just, is what your intent is going into it, because you're going to be learning lessons, regardless of whether you want to go into it or not. It's still going to come find you.
Hmm.
It's like, you might as well just do it.
That's beautiful. It's very enlightening, actually.
Happy out. What else we can talk about?
Boy, there's a lot. We're gonna have to do a part 2.
I think we might need to do a part 2, because we haven't even talked about Mupas. Remember Mupas?
Remind me again.
Oh, Mupas
Yes.
was
It was the you were involved with that. What does it stand for again?
oh, you got me.
Let
I'm
me
the
find
only
it up.
MEPAS. I'm currently the only person in my country right now who joined Mupas. I inadvertently got in a shout out from the fella. There's a guy named Carl the Crusher. No, he didn't give me.
Yep. Do you still have your device?
We got this one guy here. Yeah, that's me.
Do you still have your Mupas device then?
Yeah, of course I do. Now the battery kind of died. I got to get a new cable, but
Hey,
there
yeah.
he is. Yeah, there he's a. It's a bangle. It's a bangle watch. Has like 24 sensors in it. Gamma, temperature, humidity, axle, electromagnetic, the whole GPS. That's a big thing. So I was supposed to get tracked for an entire year, and then the cable sort of crapped out on me. So it's been there, but I am going to get back into it
So
eventually.
you're the only person in your country that has that.
Yeah.
That's cool. That would be
Well,
some. I'd be curious to try to get one of those.
yeah, do like you kind of. I think they're still doing it. Like I had to like sort of describe why I thought you kind of have to apply for it. Like, and remember what I said was like, when I got deep into meditation, freaky dreams, like, for me, the pyramids always came up. The pyramids was always like something that was like a frequent thing in my mind. Symbols from that, a big reservoir of water under the pyramid. And then I read an article that there was like some like there was actually like a reservoir of water under it, and I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And then the solfeggio tones. There was something to do with solfeggio tones in the pyramids, and how there was like a 3 section of the pyramid, and I actually I actually remembered what the solfeggio tones were, because I was humming it as I woke up,
Mhm.
which was weird.
Do you remember
And
specifically the
yes,
freak?
yes, I do.
Would you share them?
I could probably pull it up now if I can get like a solfeggio tone frequency
Okay.
generator.
I
Frequ-
I
Tone. Yeah, I remember I heard of it. I was like, toot, toot. It's. I know I butchered it. Oh, it's gonna take me.
could figure it out. Probably figure it out too. But I mean, I have a lot of. When I was little, I used to draw pictures of the pyramids and like light coming out of the top and
Yeah, the light at the top.
draw. I mean, I resonate a lot with that.
First is Pure Spirit, 852. Second is 528. And then I think the third one is 963, State of Mind.
Makes sense. I will make that track. Mess around with it, cause like that's, I get it's cool. I've got this ring. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, I see it.
But it
Oh
was
yeah.
this was actually my dad got this, and it was poured in Cairo. So this ring has been to the top of the pyramid.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of cool. And he gave this to me, and yeah, I don't know, like it's just peace. I just think peace and calming, and I think just old spirits, man.
Sweet. That's absolutely amazing. I do think we need a part two to this because we do have plenty of stories to talk about.
Yeah,
How does that sound?
that.
We'll do that then. And it is 6 a.m. here.
Deb, so where are you, if I may ask?
I'm in Ireland.
Ireland. Yeah, I remember you told me that before. I should have noticed that from the accent. Brother, I appreciate you staying up to do this.
Hey, you're fine. It's my pleasure. It's either now or never because it's just like putting it off. I couldn't put it off. So
Man, I forgot you were in Ireland. We're gonna do it at a better time for you next time, though. I promise.
heavy.
I forgot that.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it. I'll go to sleep. I'll sleep like a baby, listening to sweet, sweet frequency tuning.
Appreciate you, man.
No, of course, man. I'm glad to be here.
Well, yeah, I guess this has been the first. This has been a very cool interview. Anton, one of our very loyal subscribers that has been around for a long time, frequency tuner, teaching me a lot. Well, I think we're teaching each other a lot here.
Yeah.
It's been very enlightening. So I guess
Yeah. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here and soon to be. And next time. Yeah, that's crazy. There we go.
talk soon, brother. Get some sleep.
You too, G. See you soon.